one time for fun. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I have so many wonderful students in this building right now. There are students who just listen intently to the things I say and do without question anything I ask. And Claire is not at all like that. For those of you that have seen my interactions with Claire, there are almost always two things that are happening. One, the volume of the conversation is extremely high, and two, one of us walks away crying. I can't tell you how many times I have been in conversation with Miss Putman here about the things that have happened, but I think that one thing can be said above all the conflict and everything that happens, and that the students that are coming out of this program are capable of conversing in the language of science to a level that few other students in the U.S. can. It's a testament to our students, it is a testament to the parents that are raising those as students, and it is a testament to the quality of my colleagues. Claire we started together about sophomore year. There was a girl who was very shy about getting involved in science, and I can't even remember exactly how she landed in this position, but she decided to take on the simple goal of producing a scientific talk every week for the last 2.5 years. She trains the students who train the presenters. She reads the papers, and again, 2.5 years, every week of school, there has been a talk, without fail. If we have had school, there has been a talk. It's an amazing accomplishment. Add to that the fact that the people that are showing up, 60 to 80 students, are coming in at 7:30 in the morning before school for absolutely no credit because they are absolutely, like Claire, insane. Claire and I have, in all honesty, had many battles, and we do come out on the other side with a better understanding of each other and generally what we were talking about, but sorry. God? I'm not great at expressing how I feel about my students. I'm not. But I am so immensely proud of this one. That's all I got.
The title of my presentation is called Not Equal. Before I start, I'd like to say some thank yous. First and foremost, to my parents. All that I've done through these, all that I've done through these 4 years, I could not have done without you. Sorry. You make me so proud to be your daughter, and you really showed me that I can do anything I set my mind to, and I can thank you enough for that. To Mr. D, hi. I'd just like to thank you for taking me under your wing and really teaching me to argue and teaching me to... That was meant to be in a good way, not that way. Teaching me to discuss and really just helping me programs and facilities we have in the school. To Dr. DeCilio, Mr. Maxwell, you both have been great mentors and great teachers, and the science program would not be nearly as amazing. So thank you. Sid, I love training you these this past year, and being able to see that spark that I have and you having the same spark has meant so much to me. I'm so proud to leave Drone Club in your hands next year, and I know that you're going to do a great job. To Mark, thank you for being Sydney and I's wingman. Whenever we needed anything, Mark has honestly been our savior. He is on his phone whenever we're calling him if it's in the middle of the night because we woke up and forgot something for Drone Club. He's there. He's been amazing. Jackson wanted his own shout out. Here it is. Thank you for, you used to be on Drone Club, but it's no longer, but we still love you. And to the rest of my Drone Club team, without you guys, we would not be able to have a Thursday morning Drone Club. I know a lot of kids look forward to it, and I just love being able to work with you all. So now I want to start a discussion about gender equality. And in order to start that, I want you guys to read a few quotes about what's happening right now with the government relating to this subject. So this is what the government's doing, but I'm sure we have a little different mindset than they do. We have these things called stereotypes that I'm sure you guys reference to almost every day, so I'd just like to point out a few. Boys are messy. If you walk into a boys' room, you're going to see most likely dirty clothes all over the floor, dirty socks, maybe even food. If you walk into a girl's room, you probably expect to see their bed made and everything all neat and orderly. Girls are more mature. If you've ever seen the show Simpsons, Marge and Homer are a great example. If a girl sees a spider, you're most likely going to hear her scream from across the entire room. They might even cry, but a guy would just come along, pick it up, and throw it out and be done with it. And boys roughhouse. I'm sure some of you have brothers or have seen brothers interact with friends or anyone, and they're usually wrestling, while girls like to have their own space and play with their dolls. So I'm going to address some of these, and I'm going to tell you 3 stories. And in the end, you'll see how they all come together, so just bear with me for a few minutes. So story number 1 is about the effects of stress on males versus females. So in this study, they took rats, and they placed them in small cylinders for 2 hours every day for 7 days. So 1 week they did this. And the cylinders were about the size of the rats, so when the rats were in the cylinders, they couldn't really move. And this caused the rats to be very stressed. So this is how they stressed the rats before they did their experiment. And what they saw, and when they just did their preliminary studies, as you can see here, the white bars are just normal rats. So they never went in the cylinders, they were never stressed. This is just a normal male and female rat. And what the results that you're looking at is how well they could recognize an object. So this plays with their cognitive abilities and their memory. So males and females about the same, no worries. But now the black bars are the rats that were stressed. So they were placed in these cylinders and they couldn't move around for a week, 2 hours for a week. And as you can see, the males suddenly performed a lot worse on these cognitive tests than the females did. And we don't know why. So they wanted to look into it. So what they did first is they stopped the production of female rats. So this whole graph is just female rats. So just focus on the results that we saw in this previous slide, which are these. So this is just the control. So this is a normal rat that was not stressed, and this is a rat that was placed in these cylinders, but they didn't really perform any differently on the memory test afterwards. And now this is where it gets interesting. They used ICI, which is an estrogen antagonist. So when you inject ICI, these rats are no longer producing estrogen. So you have female rats with no estrogen, and they did the same cylinder thing and saw if that varied the results. And as you can see, it did. You may think, wow, Claire, this looks a lot like the males in the previous graph, and it does. So what they saw is that the stressed females that did not have estrogen suddenly had this cognitive impairment that they didn't have when they did have estrogen. So now they found that estrogen is clearly playing some role. So they want to deal with estrogen in males. So what they did is they injected estrogen into males and did the same exact experiment. So these first two graphs are control. So it's normal male rats with normal estrogen levels. And as you can see, the stressed ones performed worse, which we already knew from the very first graph. But now, once they added the estrogen in, it suddenly is mimicking a normal female. So they suddenly are no longer having these cognitive impairments. So something about the estrogen is helping the rats to deal with stress. So what I want you to take away from story number 1 is that estrogen plays a role in helping these detrimental effects that stress can have on rats. Okay? So to lead into story number 2, I want to tell you that there's been some research done that when a female first enters a relationship, her testosterone levels spike. Knowing that fact, what behavior do you associate with testosterone? Jenny going. Alright, let's see if Jenny's right by looking at some research. So story number 2 is going to test what effects testosterone has, specifically looking into aggression. So what they did is they took only male mice and they implanted them with testosterone sacs. So females, they usually do have some testosterone, but they wanted to give them a lot more. So the control mice had implanted sacs with no testosterone, and the mice that they were looking at did have testosterone. And they deprived these mice of food. So they basically starved the mice to get them kind of angry. And then once they re-exposed them to food, they were re-exposed with another mice. So they were put in one cage, one food source, but 2 mice. So in order for the mice to get food, they kind of had to fight for it. Before we look at the results, I want to clarify exactly what testosterone is and what it does. A lot of you, when you think of testosterone, probably think of muscles, bodybuilders, I don't know, injecting it into yourself, but it's actually a lot more than that. Testosterone affects the bones, the muscles, your skin, your brain, your sex organs, and if you think about it, that's a big bulk of your body. It's produced in the testicles for males, and it's produced in the ovaries for females. Females do have some testosterone, but males have 7 or 8 times as much. Okay? So now knowing this, they tested to see which mice were drinking more food. So the water is the food source. So if they were drinking more, that means they won the fight to the food. Okay? So the white circles are the mice that did not have testosterone. And the black squares are the mice that did have testosterone. And as you can see, the black is clearly elevated from the white, meaning that they were drinking a lot more frequently. So they won the fight. So they were being more aggressive to get their food source. So now, takeaway from story number 2. Males with testosterone suddenly became more aggressive than males without testosterone. Everyone good so far? Yes? So now for the third story. So story number 3, they wanted to test if the smell of a male or a female had any effect on mice's pain or stress. Sounds kind of random, but you'll understand in a second. So what they did is they had just mice in a cage, and they put either a male researcher, a female researcher, a t-shirt worn by a male, or a t-shirt worn by a female just in the room when they were doing these tests. And in the pain test, which you'll see, which comes up later, they use a mouse grimace scale to test how mice is feeling pain, because mice can't really talk. So you have to come up with some other way to see how much pain they're feeling. So they looked at things as orbital tightening, a nose bulge, a cheek bulge, ear position, and whisker change on a scale of 0 to 2, and they averaged that all together to come up with 1 score. So this will be important in a slide or 2. First, before they did pain, they wanted to see stress. So the way that they tested stress on mice is basically how much they pooped. It sounds silly, but they knew that if the mice were more stressed, they were going to poop more. So what you're seeing here, the blue bar is mice who were exposed to a t-shirt worn by a male. And the pink bar are mice who were exposed to a t-shirt worn by a female and how stressed they were. It's very clear to see that the mice that were exposed to a t-shirt worn by a male were a lot more stressed. They were pooping a lot more frequently than the ones exposed to the female shirt. So now we know that this male smell, it doesn't have to be the presence of a male, but just having a t-shirt that was worn by them. So the smell can cause them to be more stressed. So now they looked into pain and what effect this had on the pain. So what I want you to focus on are the two blue graphs, or the two blue bars. So the light blue bar is the male t-shirt, and the dark blue bar is a male researcher actually being in the room. And as you can see, if there was a male t-shirt or a male involved, the mice, they injected them with something, so they basically gave them a really heavy-duty shot, so to kind of irk them to have pain being felt. And the mice that were exposed to the males felt significantly less pain than if a female t-shirt or even a female researcher was in the room. So what I want you to conclude from this graph is that if a mice has a t-shirt worn by a male or even a male in the room, they can feel less pain than they normally would. So how are stress and pain related in this? So it's something called stress-induced analgesia, and what analgesia is a temporary state that causes unconsciousness, loss of memory, loss of pain, which is important, and muscle relaxation. So this analgesia is induced by stress. So because they were feeling more stress with the males, this induced this and caused them to feel lack of pain. Does that make sense? So what are the takeaways from story number 3? The mere smell of a guy can cause mice to be more stressed. And the mere smell of a guy can cause mice to feel less pain. So how are these 3 stories related? First, I want to recap because it's been a while since story number 1 was said. So story number 1 talked about the effects that stress had on rats when how a male and a female reacted differently to stress. And we found that a female was able to use their estrogen to protect against the cognitive impairment that stress could cause. So females react better to stress. Story number 2, we looked at the relationship between testosterone and aggression, and we found that female mice with testosterone became more aggressive. And story number 3 discussed that just the smell of a guy could cause mice to feel more stress but have less pain. So how are these 3 stories going to come together? I just told you 3 stories about hormones and things in the brain that are different in males and females. They are biological reasons that males and females are going to react differently to certain situations. So we have everyone these days telling you, oh, everyone should be treated equally, like there should be no difference between gender. But is that true? Or should we look at this evidence when hiring a male or a female for a job? Because maybe a male or a female could be different at a position than the other. What do you guys think? Mark.
I mean, there are you're right, there are situations where that is like you're going to part of your job, yeah,
I don't think anyone heard you. Yeah, stand up. Stand up.
Oh God. So I mean, like personally, I think because you do have these situations where you have like very stressful jobs, anything from like someone serving in the military to like just running a major corporation, and I think you should take into account like how someone's gonna react to stress. Maybe you want someone to like feel less pain in a situation. Maybe you want someone to be calmer, and that's like an important part of the job.
Mr. D, what do you think?
I think assessing someone's biological response to a situation is definitely a valid consideration when hiring somebody for a specific job. But then I'm starting to guess, like I'm starting to think about at what point does that become unfair? So like, if there's a biological basis, for example, for let's say the male analgesic effect, and you want to have a male excluded from a room because you want to reduce the amount of stress, well, could you just have a male excluded from a room just because he's stinky? Or for some other reason that maybe the evidence doesn't support? At what point do you draw the line between a biological distinction for something and pure gender discrimination?
Yes.
And I was thinking something like that, because to me, it's a little too binary to just talk about men and women, since you're just measuring you're talking about really testosterone and estrogen. Since all of us, especially if we watch the Bruce Jenner interview, I think, you know, the whole spectrum idea and the whole way the world is going with with gender identification is so much more complex than this that I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the jump, this lack of maybe.
But either everyone should be equal or everyone should be treated
Yeah, I
different.
mean, because when I was sitting there, I was thinking, well, when you go for a job interview, maybe they should just test your estrogen levels and then stick you into situations where you could, and that would be an advantage. So I love what you did in the, talked about in the testing part, but I just feel uncomfortable with the final jump being lacking with complexity.
Right. Well, I
That's
think
what
it's
I'm
more
gonna
burying the
suggest.
question, should that jump be made or should it not be made?
Okay.
Yes.
So, 2 points. One, I think hormone levels change with ages, so you can't really decide. Yes. Secondly, if we're talking about equality as far as what you would pay a man and a woman for doing the same job, that equality should exist. But should you have a man or a woman, decide which one is appropriate for a job? That I think depends on the job.
I think what you've done is, I think what this research does is isolate one factor in situation for hiring, or your question proposes a situation for hiring looking at one factor when you have to look at many factors, not only the stress level of the particular situation, the cognitive ability of the person. You need to look at the background, the totality of the person, which is their life experiences, their training, so many different factors. And in some cases, frankly, some people with more stress levels, higher stress levels and lower stress levels in the same situation, and mixing, particularly in business, can actually aid in the final result. So I think while you isolate one factor here, which is an important consideration, the hiring practices and your ability to work those, a lot more complicated than one factor.
Definitely. Yes.
I think it's a good point that it's isolating one factor, but I think it highlights a larger trend, and that's we hear a lot of, men and women have to be equal, but when you're really looking at the biological breakdown of that, we're not exactly the same. There's going to be differences, whether you want to acknowledge that or not, and you have to take that into account.
Yes, Bridget.
Pretty clear.
Sorry.
But what if you talk about how I know some people handle stress different ways? So some people use stress as like a motivation to get things done. So can't you also play this as that might not work out, like basing off men and women's stress levels, if some people react to it and use it as like in different ways?
That's a great point. One, just that relating to the research, it was like the way you reacted to the stress, like whether the mice, froze because they were stressed or ran around if they were stressed, the cognitive disability would still the same in the study. In the workforce, if you're saying in the workforce, like, okay, do you want to hire, if a female doesn't have as many cognitive declines from stress as a male, how will they react to that in the workforce? That's going to be different. But how they react to stress will not affect the effect it has on their cognitive memory. Yes.
So, where does the line with equality get drawn? Because, equal pay, equal job, it should be the same, but you've got physiological differences where sports, girls compete against girls, and there's not this homogeneous competition where everyone should treat them equally. So how do you differentiate between that?
That is a great question. I think that's something that should be discussed, and I think that there's just a lot of talk about, like in my generation, I know since I've been growing up, it just become more of a thing, gender equality, and I just think that there are a lot more things to look at on this discussion, such as where should the line be drawn. I think it's a bigger discussion than people think it is. They think about, oh, how are men and women being paid? Like that's all they compare in gender equality, but there's so much more than that. So I think this is just one more thing to consider when you're considering gender equality. Yeah.
I was just gonna agree with you on what you just said about like how complex it is. Because the thing is, a lot of people kind of see these issues as kind of as like it being like such an easy thing. It's not such an easy like thing to really fix. When really they're a lot more complex than we realize sometimes. And this is like a very good like this is like something that should like be brought up for discussion and stuff. And this helps add a lot more to that, I guess. So.
Well, when you say should men and women be treated equally,
That's very
in a
open.
business situation, if the man or woman is doing the same job description, they have the same deliverables, then I think they should be paid the same amount. Because when you have a meeting, and let's say the woman has not delivered her whatever the deliverable was, she cannot just roll over and start crying and say, hoo, the baby was up, get me up. She still has to be professional, and she still has to deliver what is expected of her. Equally, just like a man, if he has a small baby at home and he's been out, he can't make that excuse, nor should the woman use her femininity or being a mother, use that excuse. But if they're both doing the same job, I think that's where the problem is coming nationally. Man and a woman doing the same job, man gets more compensation than the woman does. He gets a better pay grade than the woman does. And I think women are getting wise to it, and we should stand up for our rights.
Yeah.
The experiments were done on mice.
Yes.
Is it fair to extrapolate that to human beings?
That's a very good point. And I think that everything in research, basically everything, almost everything that I've seen in my 2.5 years of papers have started off in mice. And I think that in order to spark a discussion with the research we have to look at it in mice, but try and apply it to our real life, because it's not possible to do all this research in humans. You know, it's so hard in the FDA. It's not easy. So yes, it's done in mice, and yes, things may be slightly different than it is in mice and rats. But I think that we have to go off of this because as of now, this is like all we have.
How do you think this question is going to be answered with the upcoming presidential
Ladies and gentlemen, Claire is a third-time presenter. For those of you that don't know, that means in Journal Club we have different levels of questions that can be asked of presenters. When you get to your third time, there are no holds barred, so I didn't feel the need to save her at any point today. One more hand. You know, as teachers, it's sometimes easy to look at the foes in the world right now, whether they be gender inequality or cancer, AIDS, diabetes, obesity. It's easy for us to see what the problems are now. And we would be remiss if we train students only to deal with those problems. What we're trying to do here is different. We are trying to train a generation of thinkers. Ones that can access primary information. Ones that can do the real experiments, and one that is often neglected. Ones that can communicate what they have found to everybody around them. It's a crazy idea, and when we set out to do it, nobody believed that we could. To this day, when I describe our program to other people, they stand in disbelief, and that is one of the reasons that we have this exhibit. So that you can interact specifically with those students, and we can get the word about this amazing program. Almost all of the groups that you saw here today are extracurricular to some degree. Even though some exist within the class schedule, they require extra work on the students, on part of the students. And I'm not sure what's crazier, the fact that we're pushing them to these levels, the fact that they're rising to those levels, or the fact that we have so many kids who want to get into these programs and can't. In order to become bigger and to do more of what we are currently doing, we need several things. It's a simple equation. We do need money. We need a larger infrastructure. We need you parents to keep bringing your kids here, and we need more in terms of faculty. Like I said, it's a simple equation. But if you believe in what we're doing, I do, and you can support us in any way, whether that be financially, intellectually. If you have a degree in science and you want to help us out with one of these projects, please come talk to us. If you have a collaboration that you can set up with us, please come talk to us. We depend on the help of others. We really, really do. As I said earlier, we are trying to modernize our science facilities so we can up the level of our facilities, and we don't have to say no to any of our students that are knocking on our doors. We are looking at $1.4 million modernization. We're $600,000 into it, and we have a little ways to go, but we're confident we can get there. If you can help us in any way, again, David Mayer is the guy to talk to. I was told that gratitude is the biggest part of anything we do, and I've got so many people to thank for what we've done here. For my colleagues, I know we were terrified about having to choose between education and our passion for science, and here we don't have to. To the kids, I mean, the fact, the hours and hours and hours. You guys just can't possibly fathom how hard they're working. And I don't say thank you enough to them. I won't. But I will do it. And to the parents, thank you for raising such amazing people that we work with every day. Thank you for making this a place that we